Hi, so I'll start with a brief introduction to Everyone Mobile for those of you who don't know as well yet. We empower people in emerging markets to improve their quality of life using the mobile phone they already own. We drive positive behaviour change and strengthen systems through interactive, mobile accessible websites, online communities and apps. We're different because our technology platform, developed over the last 10 years, combined with user-centered design, behaviour change theory and data analytics, drives deeper, more holistic engagement with users to drive tangible, real-world behaviour change and system strengthening economically, efficiently and effectively via a mobile phone. So I've got about 15 minutes, so I'm going to divide my time between 3 pieces. Firstly, I'll give you a brief introduction to Everyone Mobile's framework for digital behaviour change programs to set the theoretical context for how we can use data to strengthen behaviour change. Then I'll give you an example of a program we've been running in Nigeria for a couple of years and how we've used a series of responsive feedback loops to use our data to strengthen our programs and optimise behaviour change. And finally, I'll give you 3 take-home lessons we've learned from running adaptive digital behaviour change programs for the last few years and show how we're applying them in our COVID behaviour change work. So I'll start with a quick introduction to the framework. E1M has a very comprehensive framework for digital behaviour change pathways, but at a basic level, you can think of it like this. So we base our understanding of behavioural drivers on the FOG behavioural model. Now this says that a behaviour happens when there's a convergence between 3 aspects. When an individual is prompted to perform a behaviour, they're motivated to do so and they have the ability to do that behaviour. Now when we apply that understanding of behaviour to the context of digital behaviour change, at a very basic level, this is what it looks like. So the first behaviour you want to drive is the engagement with your digital solution. So that means that when your target users are introduced to your technology, it's accessible to them and they are motivated to access it due to a strong value proposition. Now this comes down to using human-centered design approaches so that your solution is practically accessible and has a strong value proposition within their particular context, combined with thoughtful promotional activities through trusted networks. Now, when this works well, you can think of your target users moving from the real world space to the digital space, and they begin to interact with your program. Now, the second behavior you want to drive is usually the ultimate outcome we're aiming for, real world behavior, such as hand washing with soap. So now your digital solution is the intervention that gives your target users the motivation and ability to enact those real world behaviors. So you can think of them moving from the digital space to the real world, but with now the tools and motivation they need to drive the outcome. Now, the reason I wanted to provide that theoretical framework is to provide the context for how running a digital behavior change program offers the opportunity to use data to optimize every stage of this process. There are many advantages to using a digital platform to run a behavior change program, especially in our new context. But of particular relevance to this topic is the fact that simply by operating an intervention digitally, we have access to real-time data that enables us to understand how it's performing and adapt accordingly. The nature of digital delivery means we have a range of different types of data at our fingertips, and we don't have to wait for standard monitoring cycles. Okay, thanks for bearing with me through the theory. Now onto the example from Nigeria to see how this works in practice. NigerCare is a digital community aimed at improving the business capacity and quality of service provided by patent and proprietary medicine vendors, or PPMVs, in Nigeria. Through their phones, NigerCare PPMVs can access a suite of digital content and features to strengthen their business operations and help deliver better quality primary care within their communities. During our first phase of implementation, we realized the potential to adapt and expand our NigerCare theory of change by adding an online ordering service. This realization came from ongoing user consultation and co-creation beyond the upfront consultation and co-creation we undertook with PPMVs in the early stage, because human-centered design, connecting with your users, should continue throughout your implementation. Now, it became clear that PPMVs, like many informal retailers across sub-Saharan Africa, struggle to manage their stock and purchasing processes. So we developed the NigerCare Shop, which allows PPMVs to order high-quality stock from a registered wholesaler at affordable prices through an online ordering system. There's no need to close your store for the day to restock, and it cuts out unlicensed sellers with counterfeit products that are harmful to consumers. So in order to make the NigerCare Shop a success and realize these benefits, we need to shift PPMV's purchasing behavior online. So here's how the digital behavior change framework looks in this context. So our theory of change makes the following assumptions in relation to the NigerCare Shop. Firstly, we look at the ability and motivation required to move the PPMVs into engaging digitally with the NigerCare Shop. So to drive this, it needs to be accessible and offer a tangible business benefit. And then to actually get to the outcome we care about, getting quality drugs into real-life PPMV premises, we look at the ability and motivation required to place an order. Now, to drive this, purchasing through the NigerCare Shop needs to be easy to do and affordable. And because we're doing all of this entirely remotely without that face-to-face trust building, we want to make sure that PPMVs are highly motivated. So we wanted to find a way to offer an additional level of desirability to motivate them to try out the behavior on top of the general value proposition. So in terms of a tangible data-led approach to achieving this, we've run an iterative series of micro-studies to test our assumptions and optimize our behavior change drivers. So at the first stage of this process, accessibility of the shop itself was simple, as it works through our existing NigerCare platform, which the PPMVs are familiar with, developed through that consultation and co-creation process. But we continued further human-centered design user consultation to establish the intrinsic motivation specifically for this ordering service, understand the value proposition to PPMVs, and how we could communicate it effectively to encourage them to explore it. At the second stage, once the PPMVs are exploring the shop, we've optimized ability to place an order by A/B testing the content approach we use to explain how you place an order. We tried out text with images versus an animated instructional screen recording GIF. Now for motivating, although we'd established there is a clear intrinsic motivation to order through the shop, trust was hard to establish remotely. So we explored the feasibility and efficacy of using an extrinsic motivation to mitigate the lack of face-to-face trust and kickstart that ordering behavior. So we explored this by A/B testing 2 different competition approaches during a defined period. And then at the final stage, and this is where the data engine really kicks in, our data-driven approach to understanding the performance of the behavior to assess the performance of our A/B testing. We have a wide range of digital metrics that are tracked automatically through the platform. So this included level of engagement, such as number of users placing their first order and extent of repeat orders, number of users who did not place any orders, the number of orders each user made, and the longevity of ordering behavior. We looked at contribution to reduction in counterfeit drugs in terms of the money that was spent on these products and the number of products ordered, and contribution to the strengthening of the PPMV's businesses in terms of average basket size of completed orders. So we also consistently capture user feedback through the platform and other digital channels. both on their experience of this process and qualitative insight into their attitudes towards the behaviour in terms of value perception and confidence. Okay, so that's the in-depth example. Now I'm going to close with 3 take-home lessons we've learnt from running adaptive digital behaviour change programmes for the last few years and show how we're applying them in our COVID behaviour change work. Number 1, learn about learning. Now what I mean by that is a big part of any behaviour change programme, digital or not, is about taking people on a learning journey. That's part of how we build ability and motivation through making the outcome behaviour understood, feasible, relevant and desirable. You think back to the framework at the start. Now I talked earlier about the Niger Care Shop. Well, another part of that programme is the Niger Care Academy, which is a series of e-learning courses designed to drive improved business practices and strengthen healthcare delivery through taking PPMVs on a learning journey that builds knowledge and confidence. Through building a series of these digital learning journeys, we've learned a lot about how PPMVs learn. So whereas our first course was long and theoretical and had a lot of attrition, we've reviewed the attrition points within each course, gathered feedback from users, and we now focus on a practical scenario-based style that works for them. So 90% of those who started our most recent course have gone on to complete it. We've just this week launched a new course to help PPMVs act as COVID health information agents in their communities, and I'm confident engagement is going to be strong. Lesson number 2 is that user experience trumps data collection. Now we've all been on websites and apps where a survey pops up to ask how you're finding the experience, how they can improve the service to better meet your needs. It's annoying, right? It gets in the way of what you went there to do. It's because it prioritizes the need of the people who run the service and not your needs as a user. So we focus on building user experiences that prioritize driving the desired behavior and have a secondary benefit of giving us the data and user insight we need. For instance, in our UAFIA program in Kenya, we aim to drive a range of household hygiene behaviours amongst mums and mums-to-be in the informal settlements around Nairobi. We developed a hand-washing challenge to offer a way for our users to model the desired behaviour through simple daily challenges. For instance, today, make sure your children wash their hands before eating. The mums perform the behaviour in the real world, then use the challenge tool to track their own progress. On completion of their daily challenge, users receive a thank you message, confirmation of their progress in the challenge, and additional information in the form of did you knows. The next day, the next challenge will appear. So by returning over multiple days, the women start to create and reinforce the habit. Now this design draws from techniques in the behaviour change wheel from UCL, as well as the behaviour change levers employed by Unilever and Lifebuoy in the Way of Life campaign. So although its primary purpose is as a behaviour change tool, it can also provide us with rich data about how users are putting what they've learned into practice in the real world. And then finally, lesson 3, building on the previous point, is users, not audiences. So you may have noticed that all the way through, I've talked about users. Too many digital interventions have seen mobile simply as a tool to push messaging at people or extract data from them. Now in real life, behaviours are complex and messy. They're shaped not only by what you know, but by how you feel. Genuine shifts in behaviour take time to evolve and embed and require a more nuanced set of influencing approaches. And done right, mobile can be a way to do just that. So we've gathered a lot of insight from running the UAFIA programme after the last few years, building up more and more interactivity and opportunity for our users to engage in ways that builds their confidence as well as their knowledge. So here's some results from a longitudinal study we ran with a cohort of UAFIA users, showing strong shifts not just in knowledge, but in confidence, self-efficacy, and intended behaviour. In recent months, we've built on that learning to create rich, engaging experiences for our users to actively interact with to drive behaviour change specifically on COVID, both within UAFIA and on dedicated news sites. So here's just a few examples: pledges, action reporting, and a COVID peer ambassador programme. Thank you very much for your time. Please do get in touch if you'd like any more information, or if we can support you through technical assistance on digital strategy or direct digital implementation support.